Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the members of the public that are here today. We are going to call this March 17th, 2021 regular meeting of the Airport Board. And Amanda, roll call, please.
Director Connie?
Present.
Director Leffel?
Yeah, here.
Director Sabo?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Chair Curcio?
Here. Okay, thank you. This morning, in lieu of the Pledge of Allegiance, which we will hopefully be getting back to very soon with in-person meetings in the near future, I'd like to just ask that we have a moment of silence for all those lost in the COVID pandemic. Just a moment. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We'll move on and to communications, announcements, and informational items. Board members, anything from the board? Seeing none. Any announcements from the public? Mr. Dawson, go ahead. Mr. Dawson, you're going to need to unmute.
Gotcha. Okay, so am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, as some of you may know, I'm on the Planning Commission in Monterey, and we had a meeting a week ago about the circulation element, and of which you are one node. I did notice that there really was no connections in that meeting with the rest of the world and the airport. I wonder if you could fill me in and maybe fill in the city on what the connections that you have that you're maintaining with the rest of the area, so that someone doesn't have to ride their bike up to the airport. Thank you.
Director Lapierre, you want to take that?
Mr. Chairman, you're not required to respond, but I'll happily do that. I'm not quite sure I understand Mr. Dawson's question. We are aware of the circulation element that the city has proposed, the general plan amendment. I'm not quite sure what Mr. Dawson is asking beyond that.
Okay, thank you, Executive Director. We're going to move on. Do we have any other comments from the public on non-agendized items? Mr. Dawson, your hand is still up. Is this on another issue? Okay, seeing no hands raised, move on to the consent agenda. You all have received all of the minutes in the consent agenda. Would any member of the public want to pull something from the consent agenda? Seeing none, would any board member like to pull something from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Amanda, roll call vote, please.
Director Connie?
Yes.
Director Leffel?
Yes.
Director Sabo?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chair Curcio?
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. And let's move on to our first regular agenda item. We have our friends from Carmel and Carmel Valley in the audience with us this morning, and they're going to be giving us a presentation. And I would ask whoever is going to lead that off to please let us know, and we will begin. Hi, Amy.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good
Good.
to see you.
Are you going to kick this thing off?
I am. I'm being joined by Mark Watson and Mary Crow. I think they're going to just turn their video cameras on, hopefully also in just a sec, and unmute. So you'll be hearing from all three of us this morning. And thank you so much for having us. I know some of us already know each other, but just by way of introduction, I'm Amy Herzog. I'm Executive Director for Visit Carmel. And then I'm, as I mentioned, going to be joined by Mark Watson and Mary Crow, two of our board members who, between the two of them, represent 6 hotel properties in Carmel by the Sea. Let me just make sure. Oh, there she is. Okay, great. Just want to make sure everyone was with us. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, Amy, are you going to be sharing your screen with the PowerPoint?
I am. I'm just about to share screen. So let me get
Great.
that going, and then let's confirm you're seeing the right thing, and then we'll move ahead with the presentation.
Great. We see it.
How's that look?
Now we don't see it.
Oh, okay. Then I won't do it that way. Hang on.
Now
I won't do full screen. We'll just do partial.
Well, you had full screen the first time.
Okay. Here we go. How's that?
Full
That's good.
screen.
Great. Okay. So we're really excited to be here this morning and talk with you. You know, we wanted to start to address a conversation about adding the name Carmel into the Monterey Regional Airport name. And we know that the airport has a really ambitious vision for its future, one that stresses economic vitality and sustainability and what's best for the community. And we feel that Visit Carmel's priorities align very well with your vision. And we feel that a more formal partnership can really help you to achieve that vision that you're going for. So we have a brief presentation for you today. But we really would like it to be more of a conversation. So feel free to comment or ask questions where needed. But our presentation is going to be divided into 4 parts. One is just a little overview about what Visit Carmel is and who we are and what we do. And then we're going to touch on the existing relationship that we already have with the airport and how strong that is. And then we're going to go into some slides about brand awareness and how we think we can leverage that Carmel brand awareness to help elevate the whole area. And then we'll be touching on the timing that we have right now and the unique opportunity that we believe that we have to take advantage of kind of the situation as it stands and kind of in the world of travel and tourism right now. So there we go. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Visit Carmel is a destination marketing organization, and it's comprised of 3 funding partners: the Carmel Hospitality Improvement District, the Carmel Restaurant Improvement District, and the City of Carmel. And Visit Carmel has sustainable funding. The largest funding source for the Carmel Hospitality is the Carmel Hospitality Improvement District, which just renewed for a 10-year term. So our marketing program is robust and well-funded for the next decade and beyond. Estimated funding this year is $1.25 million, and our forecast for 2022, as we approach recovery from the pandemic, will be about $1.75 million.
Right, and the way that Visit Carmel is managed is with a volunteer board of directors, and that board of directors is made up as kind of a direct reflection of the way that Mark just explained the funding. So we're heavily represented by the hotels in Carmel, since hotels make up the bulk of the funding for Visit Carmel's annual revenues. But we also have 2 restaurant representatives, 1 representative from the city, in this case it's Chip Breerig, city administrator. And we also consult with a city advisor, Carrie Tice, who is on the city council of Carmel, but also hotelier. So she's uniquely in the position to wear both hats in our case. And then there's myself as executive director. And we have monthly board meetings. Well, this past year, there's been much more frequent than monthly due to the pandemic. But it's been over the course of the last several years at these monthly board meetings. Sometimes Mike would be in attendance to give us an update about the airport, where we started to think about the concept of a name change for the airport. And that came from some anecdotes we had been hearing from some of our hoteliers, and Mary was going to touch a little bit on that.
Mary has to unmute.
Yeah.
Good morning. We have 2 hotels in Carmel, and so consequently, we have a lot of contact with the guests and a lot of conversation. I'm a regular at the airport, and I'm a big fan of the airport because for me, it really gives me a quality of life given my travel schedule that I wouldn't otherwise enjoy. Our company's based in Phoenix, and a couple years ago, I commuted weekly for a project in Flagstaff. So I'm a big fan, and I'm vocal about the airport. And I share that with our guests frequently, and they're always surprised. They don't know. They don't realize that they can fly directly in and how great the experience is just getting from the airport to Carmel. And whenever I've discussed this with our board, I unanimously get the same comments from our fellow board members that people simply don't know that they can fly direct. And so that has become important to us to share that message as well as part of our marketing, because we think it's important. And we'd love for people to know more about the direct connection here.
Right. And then that leads kind of into Visit Carmel's primary mission and our objectives, which on a very broad level are to leverage Carmel's world-class reputation to improve year-round tourism revenue. And this is, we especially focus, of course, on driving off-season and midweek travel for overnight stays. And we're extremely focused on maximizing our effectiveness. We're kind of a lean and mean organization, and we achieve that by being very integrated with what we do and very strategic in our marketing. But underlying all of our decisions is this attention to always achieving that balance between sharing Carmel and then also protecting and preserving its character and its natural beauty. It's the sentiment of the locals in our towns, but it's also the sentiment of the business owners, because we know that that is our prime asset. It's what Carmel has to offer the visitor and residents and the community. And it's always our goal to make sure that we are maintaining and protecting that. And we feel that this combination of economic vitality and sustainability very much aligns with the vision that the airport has for itself as well. So informally over the years, we've had a really great relationship with the airport and promoting it. It's a big part of our website. Not only is it featured in its own pages in several places throughout our website, but you can see on the right side of the screen there where there's an arrow. That's our footer of our website. That shows up on every single page of our website. And you can see that we are promoting the airport on every page of our website, but we've had to put next to that, fly direct to Carmel. We had to put that double message in so that it was clear enough to our potential flying visitors that the Monterey airport serves Carmel. But we do take the initiative and promote flying, not only within our own platforms, but we are always encouraging our stakeholders, our hotels. We're sending out the airport's logo, asking them to amplify that message to their guests as well. And speaking of referrals and relationships, so this is a snapshot of the analytics from your website. So these are the leading referrals into the MontereyAirport.com website. And Carmel, California, Mike has been mentioning for the last couple of years, he's noticed that our website is consistently the top referring website into your website. And I think that that footer and the extra promotion that we do throughout our website is primary reason why. And you can see here that it's 3 times that of C Monterey's website, even though Monterey's got 6 times the marketing budget that Carmel does. But we really feel this is representative of the strength of the potential flying visitor that's a potential Carmel visitor, that we do tend to attract. While we have a huge drive market business, we do tend to attract visitors who are willing and interested to fly in specifically to visit Carmel. And over the years, we've had many successful campaigns involving mostly promoting new flights and new routes. On the right side of the screen, those are just some samplings of some of the digital ads that we did to promote both the Denver and the Dallas flights when they were launching. And those involved custom landing pages and sweepstakes and working directly with those airlines. And as you may be aware, we're currently running a promotion, a full campaign in Seattle in support of that new Seattle flight on Alaska Airlines. So the left side here, there's just a sampling of some of the digital ads that are running in the Seattle area. They're targeting high intent travelers to Carmel, the demographics that we've profiled that are most likely to visit. But we've also connected with Alaska Airlines marketing team, and you can see they're using, there's an example of their e-blast to their consumer base, and they're using our imagery to promote the Seattle to Monterey flight with a picture of Carmel. And all of these ads bring the consumer to this custom landing page. You see a screenshot there on the bottom left side of the screen, which then not only allows them to book a room, but then allows them to click through directly back to Alaska Airlines, where it auto-populates the Seattle to Monterey flight into the booking system there. But this is an example of what we're doing, and it's in fact probably been our most successful cooperative campaign to date. We've got a 2-month run. We're only halfway through that time. And these are the statistics only from February 18th through March 3rd. But the big takeaways here are we're getting amazing click-through rates on this ad campaign. It's 8 times industry average for a similar campaign. So we're definitely discovering there's a high appeal to this branding amongst this visitor group. And also the average time on the page is greater than 2 minutes, which is very high. That means people really are engaged and they didn't like accidentally click through. I mean, there's intentional click through and time spent with engagement from the user. And then kind of circling back to what I had been talking about with the analytics, talked to Mike a little bit, and he took a look at your referrals for the last couple of weeks. And while Carmel, California continues to be the top referral to your website, the number 2 spot is now a SeattlePI.com, which is Seattle's main digital newspaper, where we're running these ads. So, and Mike was mentioning he thinks this might be the first time he's ever seen an out of area website like that be anywhere near the top in terms of referrals into the Monterey Airport site. So just think it's more support for what our campaigns do and how they are leading people to have showing the interest that we have amongst our potential visitors for fly-in vacation. And then for a little more about kind of branding and awareness and how we can leverage that Carmel brand, Mary was going to speak a little bit more about that.
Unmute.
I apologize, and I apologize if it's noisy. I have some jackhammering going on in front of my house right now. So if it's noisy, please let me know. Carmel enjoys international recognition and accolades, and the travelers that come to Carmel are coming nationally, internationally, but the national travelers, they fly in. And when people are looking for a destination to travel, many of the publications that we are recognized in are where they go and what inspires them, to make a trip. I don't think that most of those people really even have an awareness that they can fly in here directly and how much easier that makes the trip. So I think that for us to be able to partner with the airport and get that message out could be very, very powerful, especially in the coming years, as we know, domestic travel is going to increase, and we'll see more national travel. We'll see more people beyond the typical drive destination driving in here, because there won't be as much outbound international travel while that recovers. So I think that the brand awareness that we're enjoying right now, and even more so in the last couple of years, and I think that will continue post-pandemic, makes it a great, great time to consider partnership.
Right, and I think it's really appropriate that we happen to be meeting on the day where Monterey County officially moves into red tier. We've been waiting for that shift for months now, as I'm sure we all have. And we've been poised and ready with another new brand awareness campaign that we're going to be launching within the next week. Now that we are, now that it seems like we have in fact turned a corner, and hopefully there won't be any setbacks. But our new campaign is a little stronger call to action. We've been advertising on and off throughout this entire year, but we've varied our messaging where it's been appropriate. But we're ready to come out with "It's time to discover pure inspiration." It's a stronger call to action. It's still that same strong branding. It's very comprehensive and dynamic, not only digital ads and video and TV ads, but we've also revamped our website landing page to be even more dynamic and be a little more, have the different focus on the appeal to a post-COVID traveler. So much more emphasis on wide open spaces, and kind of physically distant activities, safety, cleanliness, that kind of thing. But it's a really robust campaign that we have planned for this spring and beyond. I mean, as Mark pointed out at the beginning, we are well funded, and we are very secure funding we just renewed, the Hospitality Improvement District has renewed for the next 10 years. So we feel very confident that we are going to continue to be very strong in our branding and our marketing. And again, while the drive market is important to us, we also know that fly market visitor is a great visitor for the whole community. They have less impact on the community, they stay longer, and they spend more. And that's, not lost on us, certainly, when we make our marketing decisions as well. So if any of you have worked with Mimi Han or the aquarium, you're probably aware that they invest a lot in market research. She is like the guru and the go-to person when it comes to trying to find out not just about the aquarium, they do research on behalf of the whole destination. So we were able to talk with her about, and she was able to pull up some results of a huge survey that they did. It was 9,000 respondents. So it's a really good data. And basically the key findings there were that for those who are familiar with this destination, they identify this region as Monterey, Pebble Beach, and Carmel. That is how they think of this destination. And the bottom line is Carmel is indeed on its own a motivator for people to visit. It's a well-recognized brand. But at the same time, I think we all know, if you've been in the Midwest or the East Coast, people don't necessarily at all make the connection that Carmel and Pebble Beach and Monterey are in the same destination. Mike and I both grew up in Chicago, and we know that all too well. I mean, I've lived here for 25 years, and people still don't understand that Monterey and Carmel and Pebble Beach, much less Pacific Grove, where I live, but they don't understand that these are all connected and that the Monterey Airport does indeed serve Carmel. Mark, I think you were going to pick up here a little bit.
Yeah, as Amy mentioned, the Monterey Bay Aquarium probably does more market research than anyone on the peninsula. And you can see there are strong associations for Carmel with their visitors. But many of these visitors are from the drive-in market that we all enjoy. New visitors from out of the area, or fly-in visitors, are often unaware of the proximity of Carmel. You're going to hear us say that over and over again. Mimi Han had this to say about that. She said, potential fly-in visitors having a better understanding that Carmel is a part of the destination would be beneficial for our whole tourism community. I don't see a downside. I'm confident it would help. So then, Amy, you can go to the next slide. Adding Carmel to the airport name would broaden the bullseye, so to speak, of identifying the region. It also positions us better for more air service and for a higher rated traveler, like Amy mentioned, that stays longer and spends more, which is good for the whole community. Amplifying the recognition of the destination will also give us more advantage in competing with airports such as Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo, and reduce the leakage to San Jose and SFO. And as you can see in this graph that represents week over week search terms on Expedia, it shows an almost equal number of Monterey and Carmel searches. However, in a recent report that our Expedia rep shared with me, she noted that the Monterey market had 211 bookings that were packaged with airline flights, but in the Carmel market, there were zero packaged with airline flights. And that's even though Carmel is enjoying a much quicker recovery and more bookings and a higher occupancy level than Monterey right now, but we're just not getting packaged with flights. So although Expedia could not officially be quoted for this presentation, I can tell you that our market manager suggested the inclusion of Carmel in the airport naming would significantly increase packaged flight bookings.
Right, and you're probably all aware that American Airlines is one of the, I think maybe the only major airline that when you go on their site, you can see on the left side here, they identify the Monterey airport as Carmel Monterey Peninsula. And, we were wondering about that. And then I was lucky enough to secure a call with Shane Hodges. He's the VP of sales for the Western Division and International at American Airlines. And luckily Mike was able to join us on that call. So I'm glad I had a witness, because I can't overstate Shane's enthusiasm about the idea of adding Carmel to the name of to the airport name. He made it very clear that including Carmel there was no accident, that it is a very deliberate choice based on the vast amount of data they have for searches specifically for Carmel. They didn't want to lose those searches to another airport and wanted to make that direct connection for the consumer. So again, just more support for the fact that they have a very specific, sophisticated digital strategy that has proven that the Carmel name is an advantage for them. And he very heavily recommends that name change, not just for the short term, but also for some long-term reasons, which I'm going to circle back to in just a moment. But just along those same lines, yep, someone, oh, I thought maybe someone wanted to chime in. Okay, along those lines, Mike introduced me to Franco Finn at Alaska Airlines, kind of a newer partner, and he's kind of in a catch-all type of position. But turns out he was a good guy to talk to, because the day we spoke, later that day, he was having one of his weekly strategy team meetings. It's a Bay Area strategy team consisting of marketing people, revenue managers, network planners, and the like. And so he got to throw this query out to his group, and he found some really interesting things that even surprised him. He's based in San Francisco, so of course he knows this area well, but that team is all over the West Coast. And many on this team, and these people work for Alaska Airlines, did not know that Carmel was served through the Monterey airport. And they thought that you had to fly in and then make the long drive. So we were very surprised to see that. And that team brought up the Burbank Airport, which in 2017 renamed themselves the Hollywood Burbank Airport, for much of the same reason, that they wanted to let passengers know where it was that they were flying. So Alaska Airlines also strongly supports the idea of a name change. They think it adds to the allure and helps to better identify the region for the consumer. And there is more precedent besides Burbank for this.
Yeah, in addition to Hollywood Burbank, the Reno Tahoe Airport is another example of setting the precedent of expanding the identity of the destination. Brian Culpin, Vice President of Marketing and Public Affairs, had this to say: "Our name change in 2005 was a game changer. There is no question in my mind that the Tahoe name brings us more service than we should rightfully have compared to other similar sized destinations. It helped provide a better location point, especially with airlines, and it built on itself. More flights available made more people want to come." Brian also mentioned that he believes their pandemic recovery is accelerated due to the Tahoe branding and the strength of leisure travel. He says they are tracking about 10% ahead of comparable airports. And as you can see from those revenue numbers, revenue growth was up 35% within 3 years after the name change to Reno Tahoe.
So now we're going to turn to kind of the timing and the opportunity as we see it. This is especially focused on leisure travel, leading the recovery.
You know, we know that leisure travel will lead the recovery for our hotels, not just in Carmel, but throughout California and Arizona. And the latest prediction is that it will take about 5 years for international travel to recover to its pre-COVID levels. So that works both ways. National domestic travel will increase. And as we talked about earlier, we'll see more inbound visitors, I think, from across the country in these coming 5 years because of the impact on international travel. So our hotel is pivoting to really focus on leisure travel in the coming years, although our larger hotel in Carmel does typically do a fair amount of group business as well. When it comes to group business, one of the major concerns that we face when talking to meeting planners nationally is airlift. They're not aware that there's airlift into the Carmel Monterey area, and that can be a factor in a decision. And whenever I have an opportunity to educate people, of course I do. And you know, what I tell them is that when I need to travel to Arizona, for instance, to Phoenix or to a project in Flagstaff, I can leave my house and get to my project in Scottsdale faster through the Monterey airport than I can drive to San Francisco. And when people hear that, it's a real game changer, because they realize that it's not as hard to get here, that drive from San Francisco transportation isn't required. So I think there's just so much potential in the coming years in getting the word out. And as a resident, I would love to see people come here through the airport. I think that would have a positive impact on traffic as well. So I think that most of the new routes, what appears to be happening is most of the new routes are leisure, you know, routes that focus on leisure travel. And I expect that as business travel takes some time to recover as well, we'll see more of that the airlines will be focused on leisure routes that are bringing us, hopefully, inbound visitors.
Right. And we've established that adding the Carmel name can help with branding and educating the potential traveler. But in terms of this leisure travel opportunity, you know, there's a real opportunity right now. When we talked with Shane, he also made it clear that, well, first of all, American Airlines had just had its best week since the pandemic. And I think we're seeing that the airlines are reporting that they feel that they're also turning a corner, almost exclusively due to this high interest in the domestic leisure travel. But specifically for American Airlines, because they're so international, you know, Shane talked about they've got planes on the ground that would have been flying internationally, and they want to get those in the air. They're looking for opportunities for new routes. They're going to be more willing to take chances right now, but they're going to be looking for that leisure travel opportunities. And he very strongly felt that his network planners would look more favorably on an airport that was working toward being more expansive and more marketing oriented. So he also brought up the success of the Dallas to Monterey flight. Shane, his thought was that he felt Carmel was integral to the success of that flight. And we were curious as well. You know, we've in Carmel always felt that Texans really love Carmel, that, you know, just when you're interacting with visitors, when you're in town in Carmel, there's so many from Texas. So we were strongly in support of that route, but we were able to get a hold of some data. In 2019, there were 257 second homeowners from Texas who had homes in this area. But you can see the vast majority of those second homes are located in Carmel, and then another quarter of them are in Pebble Beach, and then the rest are sprinkled throughout the peninsula. And again, it's just an example of Carmel being integral to supporting the success of a flight. And that's without Carmel being in the name. Imagine if Carmel was part of the airport name, imagine the possibilities there. So just in conclusion and some final thoughts, you know, in the past, we've had a very organic and informal relationship with the airport, as we've kind of shown you some examples of here. But in really looking at the impact of that relationship, it seemed only natural that we should come here and kind of continue this conversation with you. And on that note, we would really look forward to hearing your thoughts about what we've had to share with you this morning.
Well, thank you, Amy. Wonderful presentation from your team and very, very enlightening. What I'd like to do on this is we're going to go to the board at this time for questions only. Board members, we will not have discussion on this item today, nor will we take action on this item today. But we will like to have all of your questions answered while we have their team here. Again, please limit the there is no discussion. Please limit this to questions only. And then I will make some comments after board questions. Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. And that was an excellent presentation, Amy. It answered a lot of questions for me. And I wanted to indicate a couple of things. One, going all the way back to the origins of this airport, back in 1939, the United, which was the only carrier serving the area, serving the airport, had their destination being Monterey, Carmel, and it continued on there for a long time. And I fully support returning to that same concept. The second thing is I think it's an excellent idea to promote Carmel as part of our name. I would be, I guess, a little reluctant to give up the Monterey as the primary name or the first name in the thing, because we do represent a region here. And
Director Sabo, I have to interrupt. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt. This is limited to questions, not discussion. So if you have a question, please ask it at this time.
All right. Well, the major question that I had was trying to lead with the Carmel as the destination here, the advantages of using Monterey versus San Jose or San Francisco is travel time. I don't see much in the way of that promoting that particular advantage in any of the advertising, and I would encourage that as a lead, because you got 10 minutes to Carmel versus an hour and a half from San Jose. So that there's got to be a reason to use Carmel, because San Jose has more flight options than we do, but that 10 minutes is a good idea. So I don't have any further questions, Gary.
Any other board members with questions only, please raise your hand. Director Sani, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Curcio. My question, I want to also thank you for the presentation and sending it yesterday for us to preview. That was really nice as well, to just have have some time to digest and look it over, and then, to hear from you today and really be able to listen and focus. So thank you for that. My question is just about do you have any thoughts around naming conventions, or what you'd like to see, or are you quite open to that overall?
Well, I think we're open, but our first choice would be call it the Carmel-Monterey Regional Airport.
And to maintain the MRY, and not maintain the branding that's already associated with that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
MRY would not change. It's just it would just help with the being able to call MRY the Carmel-Monterey Airport. Just it's not a huge lift. In other words, it's not upsetting the apple cart in any way. It's just kind of an additional.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's my only question.
Director Miller. Questions only. You're muted, Carl.
Can you hear me now?
You go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Amy, Mark, Mary, thank you very much for the presentation. Very well done. I have seen that before where Carmel was listed first and then followed by Monterey as a destination. I have a couple quick questions. How did you make the connection with Alaska Airline for this promotion that's being offered up in their area that's generating a lot of traffic to our website?
Well, we consult with Mike. Well, first of all, I've been a member of Team Fly Monterey, which has been kind of in remission for a while, but hopefully we'll be getting that back again. And so, but you know, pre-pandemic, Mike and I would talk a lot about the new routes and how Visit Carmel can support those. So in the past, we've been comfortable saying, hey, we want to do something to support this new route. Who do we talk to? And Mike puts us in touch with them. So we were in touch with Alaska Airlines marketing department on the promotion, who was a different person than Franco, who I consulted with regarding the name change possibility.
Well, I think that's great that you're doing that. What are the load factors currently in Monterey, in Carmel, and how does that compare to Monterey? Excuse me, load factors is an airline term. What's your occupancy rate in Carmel as compared to Monterey?
Well, Monterey has about 3 times as many hotel rooms as Carmel, but especially in the last 6 to 8 months, Carmel has enjoyed a much higher occupancy rate of their rooms due to the fact that groups and corporate travel is really non-existent right now. And there's been a really escape locations like Carmel have been quite popular during the pandemic when people just wanted to get away to a retreat. And so we've really enjoyed some good occupancy. And actually, I think we're tracking March higher than 2019's March right now. So although Monterey has 3 times as many rooms as Carmel, Carmel is a more popular destination, especially right now.
Yeah, I was in Carmel and I was just amazed at how bustling the restaurants, it was all outdoor seating, but how well you guys were doing. But that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys again for your presentation.
Any other questions from directors? Seeing none, Executive Director Lapierre, I'm going to direct you we're going to refer this to the Air Service Committee, and I ask that you please agendize it for the next Air Service meeting, and we will be bringing a recommendation back from that for our next month's full board meeting.
Very good.
That being said, again, Mark Watson, thank you so much. Mary, Amy, terrific job, great presentation. And I really am so happy to get to see my friend Mark Watson because I almost never get to see him except for maybe 7 times a day via Zoom. So again, thanks to everybody for being here. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, and Mark and your team, welcome to stay. But if you're busy folks, I know you are, you can sign off anytime you like.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks so much for having us.
Okay, our pleasure. Okay, we are going to move on to item 2 of the agenda. It's Resolution 1796. And it is a resolution authorizing acceptance of COVID-19 federal relief funds. Director Lapierre, is this you or Mr. Burkholz?
I will take this one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go for it.
This is a resolution that authorizes staff to accept the grant funds that are coming our way. If you recall, we accepted $12.6 million in CARES Act funding some time ago. There's a second tranche of money that has been approved and we're awaiting the grant offer that's called CRISA. That's an acronym. That's $2.2 million. We don't have authority to accept that on your behalf at this point. We also included in this resolution the third batch of money that's coming from the American Recovery Act. We don't have a lot of details about those funds yet, except we do believe that that our portion of those funds would be about $3.3 million, and about 200,000 of that would be dedicated specifically to concession relief. So there are two more bunches of money, baskets of money coming our way. We would ask you to authorize us to accept those on your behalf.
Okay. Before we bring it to the board for questions, I'd like to go out to the public. Does any member of the public have any questions on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll go to the board. Any board questions? Wow. There we go. Director Miller?
So we have to agree to take this money. I don't know if I want to take free money. Okay, I'll withdraw that. It sounds like a good deal, but my thanks to staff for staying on top of this and guiding us through. And this comes with a lot of work for staff. I think it's fair to note that it is not free money. It comes with strings and it comes with requirements for reporting, but it has made a difference for us. So thank you.
Director Sabo?
Okay, thank you, Gary. Two questions. Given that this latest batch of grants singles out rent mitigations, and are the original grants restricted rent mitigation for our concessionaires and so forth? And second, do you have a plan for how you would spend the rent mitigation money yet?
Answer to the first question is the first batch of money from CARES Act did not have any specificity to it regarding the use of the funds for concession relief. We have used those funds at your approval to help mitigate rent. So when we draw money from the grant, from the CARES Act grant, we draw money to keep ourselves whole, which whole is inclusive of rent that we have abated to date. So we're keeping ourselves whole with that money as though we were still getting rent. The second batch of money was a bit more restrictive. It did specify just over $50,000 for concession relief, which we have used in that same, well, which we will use in that same vein to continue to help our essential services at the airport with rent, some form of rent abatement. Our rent abatement that was approved by the board continues through May of this year. So this will help us do that.
Well, will we be restricted in the bigger amount of money from using that in rent mitigation?
No, you are not restricted from using it for that. We use it for operations, and when you look at our budget, the way we budget, it's all inclusive, and we look at bottom line, and we make sure that when we draw funds from the grant, we make sure that to the best of our ability, we fill in the gap, if you will. We close that delta so that we're at least whole in comparison to our budget.
Okay. And finally, have you noticed any greater number of restrictions on the money, the large bunch of money, the $2 million and I guess $3 million that's coming later? Are there any additional restrictions that we haven't had before?
We don't know about the third batch of money. I sat in on a call yesterday, and it sounds like it's a little bit more restrictive as it relates to concession relief, but not restrictive as it relates to operations.
Okay.
The first batch of money, CARES Act funds, could be used for a project. The second and third look like they are solely and totally dedicated to operations of the airport and concession relief.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion
Director Curcio, I would move that we adopt Resolution 1796, a resolution authorizing acceptance of COVID-19 federal relief funds.
We have,
Seconded by Carl Miller.
okay. Amanda, roll call, please.
Director Swamy,
Yes.
Director Lefferts,
Yes.
Director Sobo,
Right, was that for me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Curcio.
Yes, Amanda, your audio is not good. Maybe you can check it out and work on it a little bit. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to our next agendized item, which is Resolution 1797, a resolution amending 1778 and approving the amended Capital Improvement Program, CIP, budget for the Monterey Peninsula Airport District for fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Director, who will take this?
I'm going to ask Chris Morello to take this one for you.
Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning.
As indicated in the staff report, this budget, capital improvement budget amendment is in line with the approval that the board made back in January for the airport capital improvement plan. That is our 5-year plan that we have to submit to the Federal Aviation Administration for potential funding projects. As we indicated at that time, we come back to the board while they approve the ASIP, we come back to the board with additional approvals. And this is the next approval that we'd be asking for under that is for the fiscal year 21, which we are currently in. FAA's fiscal year starts on October 1st and finishes on September 30th. So they are in fiscal year 21. For that fiscal year, we had added 2 projects, or we had anticipated the potential of 2 projects that are not and were not improved back in June when we approved this year's capital improvement budget. Our local capital improvement budget, which starts on July 1st. So timing differences is one of the reasons for this. In addition, we brought the financial plan to you at the special board meeting that identified these projects as well. So with that, we have added 2 projects to the capital improvement plan for this year. One is, the first is the safety enhancement phase A, the design for the commercial ramp, which would be where we would be moving the existing commercial service, our airlines, over to our southeast corner over here. So we need to begin design so that we can put ourselves in a position to accept federal funds, especially if there's any stimulus or as there is discussion of infrastructure funding potentially coming. We really want to make sure we position the airport in a position that we'd be available to take those type of funds, which means we're kind of shovel ready. So that first project is design for that project. And the second is the potential of South Side land acquisition, 4.4 acre. We also would like to position ourselves again, if there's funding, we need to do appraisals. While we're not there yet, we might have some financial funds that we would want to spend this year if that opportunity comes and we are able to get some negotiation on that land acquisition. We want to have a project available and approved so that we could then later submit for a reimbursement under Grant App. And the last is that we removed a project, the 2020-10 Stormwater Resource Control Board analysis project that we had done. We had had it as a capital improvement project, but at last month's amendment to our capital budget, our regular budget, our operating budget, we moved that expense over into the Planning and Development Department because it really did not meet the intent of a capital. So that one was removed from the actual capital budget. So you will see on the second page of our budget in red, the 2 projects that we are adding. And as we said, we removed one project from our budget, which reduced our overall capital expense by $185,000 for that component. Next step will be after this, if the board does approve Resolution 17 1797. We will be bringing a contract for board approval for the design to you in the near future, probably at the next meeting. With that, I would answer any questions and request that you adopt resolution 1797, the amendment to this year's capital budget.
So before we come back to the board, I'd like to go out to the public. Does any member of the public wish to make public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to the board. Director Sabo.
Thank you, Gary. I have a couple of questions. Refresh us on the original CARE money that came. There was a provision for 100% FAA funding on projects, AIP funding, and I may be getting that wrong. In other words, we didn't have to contribute our 10%. That's still in effect, and am I all wet on that?
No, that was specific to FY20 capital AIP projects. So we did, under our VSR, vehicle service road improvements, get 100% funded for that project. But that was, the CARES Act was specific to projects that were in fiscal year, FAA fiscal year 20. Okay. We are now in FAA fiscal year 21, although in the American Recovery Program, there appears to be language that grants will be matched at 100% for fiscal year 21. So there is a good possibility that the grants that we put in this year might be matched at the 100%. It appears that language is there. Again, we're waiting for detail out of that, but some of what I've read in the authorization does seem to appear that that will be the case again.
Okay. And the second question is on these proposed projects that are to be added to the capital budget. If for any reason we decided not to relocate the terminal to the new location, are we liable to reimburse the FAA for at least the design element or the property acquisition? Are we obligated to reimburse the FAA if we don't proceed forward with the terminal project?
Director, no, we are not. We will go through the justification process on both of those grants. If FAA believes that the investment is justified, they will participate. You are not obligated to move forward beyond. I will say that the construction of another ramp on this airport is probably a good thing regardless of what we do on the terminal building. We need more ramp space on this airport, and this is, if nothing else, a good way to construct that.
Okay, I guess I'm misunderstanding what the commercial ramp apron is. Would that be, is that going to be around our existing terminal or in the new location?
No, this is the new location, the ramp area that would serve the terminal building if you choose to build it. If you don't choose to build it, it would become a ramp area that would be used for other purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Leffel.
Thank you. I just wanted to assure the rest of the board that the Finance Committee, Director Sani and myself did a thorough vetting of this at the Finance Committee. It was a large part of our conversation, and that the Finance Committee is giving a total endorsement of this change, of this resolution.
Thank you, Director Leffel, because that was going to be my question. Is any other, I see no other hands. At this time, I'll call for a motion.
I would move that we adopt resolution number 1797. A resolution amending resolution number 1778 and approving the amended capital improvement program budget of the Monterey Peninsula Airport District for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Do we have a second?
Seconded by Carl Miller.
Second by Director Miller. Amanda, please take roll call vote.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Loeffel,
Yes.
Director Scavo,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Curcio.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on to board committee reports and acceptance of department reports. Let me remind the board that questions that are pertaining to standing committees, please be held until we get to that portion next on the agenda. At this point, I'd like to limit questions, if there are any, of department reports, which you've all received. Are there any questions on department reports? Seeing none, we're going to move to standing committee, and we'll start with budget and finance. Hold on.
I couldn't get to my mute.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, hold on just a second here. I got to put my glasses back on. These are questions, but I noticed that the fire department has reported a number of accidents on Fred Kane Drive. Is there something going on there? I mean, do you know much about it, Mike? Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I only tangentially, Director. We do know of one accident that was caused simply by distracted driving. They ran through the stoplight at Garden Road and ran straight into our fence. The other accidents we're not aware of, but we've not also seen any problems with the roadway. No construction related to the roadway. No activities that would cause that.
Okay. It was a little alarming. I didn't know whether we had a hazard on the road or not.
Yeah, we're aware of it. We're not seeing the reason, but we do know that it's happening.
Okay.
That's traffic to the airport, but it's not.
This was related to the finance report, I guess, or finance department. We had a capital expenditure here for the electric charging system at $44,000. Is that a reimbursable? Are we going to get reimbursed? Is that a grant or is it just out of pocket for the district?
I can answer that, Tim, if you want. That is going to be 75% reimbursable through the Cal EVIP program. So we will make one submission for reimbursement request of 75% of the cost once we complete the installation, which should be in the next week.
Okay, thank you. And finally, on operations, Phoenix seems to have a large number of delays. Do we have any understanding of these outbound delays, inbound delays, and is there any reason for these delays that we can put our finger on?
Principally weather in the Phoenix area. That seems to be the overriding concern. Is they've had a bout of less than desirable weather down there, and I think you've read about it and heard about it. So that's what we attribute the concern to.
Okay, so it's they're getting delayed out of Phoenix.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Let me remind everyone that questions on the standing committee reports are questions that are not addressed in the committee minutes. That being said, are there any further questions from the Finance Committee? And Mary Ann, would you like to report out?
I think the minutes are very thorough, and the bulk of our time was spent discussing both of the resolutions and how they affected the budget. So I really don't have anything else to add. Lisa might.
Lisa, anything? Okay.
I also thought the record, the minutes really reflected what we discussed.
Very
And the
good.
board
Thank
has
you.
Looked at both resolutions.
Bill, you want to tell us about air service?
I think the Air Services Committee minutes pretty much says the story. And we are kind of hampered in the Air Services Committee because we don't have any operations reports on delays, cancellations, and in inbound traffic. We don't have that information because it's not reported until after our meeting. So that's why I certainly raised the question about the Phoenix delays. We don't see it until the rest of the board sees it, which is a hindrance to a good discussion on that subject in the Finance Committee, or I mean in the Air Services Committee meeting. So that's it's covered very well in some very adequate minutes.
Very good. Thank you, Director. Director Miller, do you want to tell us about the Lease Committee? You need to unmute. There you go.
I know it took a minute. I'll echo my fellow directors. I thought Mr. Lapierre did a great job of encapsulating what we talked about. The two main things in the minutes, the two main things was one, the rent negotiations or lease negotiations for the Tarpey's property. If you remember prior discussions, that is sort of a unique lease. It's a long-term lease that we've had. It's based solely on fixed amounts that raised with the CPI and not a percentage of the business. Mike did bring that up with the owner, the new owner of the property, who's willing to explore that in later years. Right now, it was a recommendation of our committee that we keep that we follow, that we agree to what Mike was able to work out, and that is ending in May. We will go, he'll start paying full rent. He'll forego his 50% offset that we were giving him. He'd also raise his rent by 2% CPI, which is actually less than 2% this year, but in subsequent years, it will be what the actual CPI is. And he also has agreed to put up $100,000 for needed improvements, and that will be money that he will spend, and the airport will oversee to make sure it happens. I think it's a great extension. It will come back to us, I believe, Mike, or will it not?
No, it will. It needs to come back to the full board for adoption, since there is a change in the provision regarding rent escalation. Currently, as you said, Carl, we adjust based on CPI. The proposal is that for the first year of the extension, we adjust at a flat 2%, which currently is in excess of CPI. So I need to bring it back to the full board, and we'll do that in April.
Thank you. Anyway, it will be the recommendation of the lease committee that the board agrees to that. The second thing we spent a lot of time talking about was the parking concessions. Mr. Executive Director Lapierre is trying to look for additional sources of revenue wherever possible. I think he's done a great job. But we look to parking as one of those. The minutes do a far better job than I can do in this brief time explain it. So I urge you to read the minutes. The plan that he's I think it has a lot of merit, Chair. That because the estimations are down for parking at the moment, and this does require hiring additional employee, that there is a wait and see attitude till we get our revenues back up a little bit. But Mr. Lapierre will be meeting with representatives from REEF, which is the new name for Republic, and he will bring this back to us at a future date, correct?
That's
Mike?
correct. That's correct. I intend on bringing this forward no later than the May meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. That's all I have unless we have some specific questions.
Yeah, I'd like to make one addition, and that is that I made the recommendation during the lease meeting that we offer the current vendor a 1-year extension on his agreement. And I made that because Director Miller very accurately pointed out that the pitfalls because of the current conditions due to COVID. So I did suggest that we possibly try to get them to take 1 more year. That's the only addition that I have. Anything else? Are you raising your Director Leffel?
I am. I'm having a problem trying to get to the little icon that lets me do that. I'd like to ask a question. I was confused as to an answer in the minutes. And I saw that Director Miller asked if the airport owns the equipment currently. And the response was yes, that we had in effect purchased it. But I didn't quite understand this answer. So could somebody, do we actually own it or do they own it? I don't understand this answer.
So,
Okay.
So what happened? Did you want to go ahead, Mike?
No, feel free, Carl. Feel free.
What happens is they bought the equipment, so they really financed it and took out payments and probably some interest from what we could gather out of revenues. There is additional equipment that would have to be bought, including a server. And I don't know why I took this over, because really, Mike, you're probably much better at explaining this than I am. But what would the additional equipment costs that are going to be?
Since all of the transmission is done by radio, not by hardline, we have to buy some. We're going to need at some point to buy some new radios to ensure that our transmission is solid. Will the server that we currently have, or that REEF currently uses, is dated and is in need of replacement, so that would be an immediate expenditure on our part if we move forward with this. Otherwise, REEF is going to have to replace the server at some point. But you know, I'm meeting with representatives of REEF on April 6th, and they've assured me that they have some ideas on how they can increase our revenues and still stay in the partnership. We'll explore those with them. We'll explore what our options are regarding an extension of the agreement for 1 year to see where our traffic levels go. But the intent is to wrap all of that up and bring it back to the board no later than the May meeting.
Okay, I guess it still doesn't,
Okay.
we own the equipment? If we said you've got 60 days to get out, do we own the equipment and could put somebody in the booth and take it over? Or do we not own the equipment? And what I'm hearing from you is we want to upgrade the equipment, but this question asked, do we own the equipment currently? And I couldn't understand this answer.
Okay, yes, we own the equipment. We purchased it through the arrangement that Director Miller was articulating, where we purchased it over time from REEF/Republic by virtue of allowing them to keep additional revenues that would normally have come to us. So we own the equipment. If we said to REEF tomorrow, you're gone, we own that equipment. We can put a body in there and we can operate it.
Okay.
Director Sabo.
This may be a little premature, Mike, but in your anticipation of considering this change in operation of the parking facility, if we have to add staffing, would that be contract employees or would this be additional airport district employees?
What we're contemplating at this point, and it'll be as part of the overall formal presentation to the full board, is an additional person in our operations team that would, because the amount of time that we would spend on this is about 20 hours a week is what the estimate is. We believe that we can enhance our operations team performance, extend their hours, and provide for that 20 hours of work time, if you will, and also enjoy the benefit of additional work hours of our operations team, additional coverage, which is key for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see no other raised hands, so we're going to move on to the ad hoc committees. Executive Director, was there any local jurisdiction liaison?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Let's move on to liaison representatives, and I'd like to start with LAFCO, Director Leffel.
So LAFCO's got what was supposed to come in over the last few months came in last week, which is the formal application of the Water Management District to extend its boundaries and to become a utility that can provide water and service to the community. So that application is in. We have a closed session meeting on that next week. The determination will be made whether or not the application is complete. At this time, staff believes it is not complete because the Water Management District has not completed the tax agreement with the county of how this would affect the property taxes. As you know, CalAm is a for-profit enterprise and they pay taxes. If the Water Management District extends the boundaries and takes over the service of those boundaries, there would not be a tax. So it'll be interesting to see how this is. Once the application is deemed complete, which at this point it is not, once it's deemed complete, LAFCO has 90 days on a shot clock to complete the study and the agreement of whether or not the Water Management District can extend its boundaries and if it can extend its powers. So under Cortese Knox, which is the legislation and binding legislation that LAFCO operates under, it's pretty silent on most of this. There's just 2 sentences, and that's what we're going to have to go with. So I have spent in the last 2 weeks about probably 14 hours on this with conference calls, and I've got another one this afternoon, and we'll see what happens next week.
Thank you, Director. That's very interesting, and we appreciate that. I know you will keep us up to the minute on this. It's a tremendously important item, and appreciate all the time you're going to have to spend on it. Regional taxi, I don't think meets, right?
Not till July.
Wonderful. Bill Tamsi.
Yeah, they didn't have much of a meeting. There was more reporting by Caltrans. Highway 1 repair work has started in that area where they had the part of California fell in the ocean. But it started on March 1, and it'll be fully restored, in their opinion, by the beginning of summer. So there should be full throughway traffic on Highway 1. The campgrounds are open, and so they're progressing very well on the restoration of Highway 1 down there in Big Sur. Imjin Parkway modifications are starting this summer, and I'm hopeful that facilitates movement along Imjin Parkway to maybe the airport as an alternative. Preliminary design work is starting on Highway 68, Highway 68 in front of the airport out there. they're doing more simulations of the traffic speed through Highway 68. I'm really looking for that because I'm not sure that the number of roundabouts that they've included here really speeds up traffic. They're really dead set to have as many roundabouts as possible. I don't think that's helpful to the airport or the traffic into Monterey or out of Monterey. And finally, the air district reported that they have available funds for diesel engine replacements. And I don't know whether we have any equipment for diesel engine, but they have grant funding available for replacement of those diesel engines with more sustainable types of engines. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Director.
One final thing, Smith over at the Monterey City Council is now the new chairman. So
Good.
Important to know. So
Good. Director Miller, anything on special districts liaison?
Well, we have a meeting coming up next month. We'll get that information out to you. It will most likely be a Zoom meeting, I'm almost positive. And our guest speaker is our new State Senator, John Leard, who will be talking to us about everything, I guess. And we'll
So
probably have a lot of
Carl,
questions.
Carl, I'm curious, do you eat your dinner while that's on Zoom? Because that was always a dinner meeting.
Yes, I do. I do have a, and I am able to enjoy a nice glass of wine while I'm also. So that's the only.
Not sure
uptake,
that you
to
want
the
that on a
Zoom
recorded
meeting.
meeting, but it's too late now. Director Sabo.
Too late.
yeah, just one question for Carl. I've been reading these CSDA announcements here. They kind of alluding to funding may be available to special districts. Do we qualify for any of that? Have you been following that at all? In other words, federal funding or state funding?
Yeah, mainly the state funding, I think, is what you're referring to coming from CSDA. Some of the other federal funding, I mean, our staff has a pretty good handle on the federal funding, and that's unique to airports. I did refer something to Director Lapierre, and he was looking into it. But yeah, if you ever see an opportunity like that, I would just urge that we refer that to staff and see if there's a pot of money that we can access. Director Leffel has her hand up.
I do. If I understand this correctly, the airport would not be in the pool of the special districts that would be allowed to get state funding because we received the bulk of our funding from the federal government. So although this is moving forward very slowly, and I'm not sure by the time they quit fooling around with it that there'll be any money for anybody, but we're not in that. We're not in that legislation.
Okay. I see no other hands. Executive Director, anything on AMBAG?
We met a week ago and had a good meeting. It was the basic topics that we covered were the overall work plan and budget for fiscal year 21-22. That was an informational review, and then the 2020 or 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy. That was also an information topic. Both of those documents or the presentation are available on the AMBAG website if you'd like.
Any questions for Executive Director Lapierre? Director Sani.
I just wanted to confirm it was 2045.
2045. Yeah. Yeah.
I will find that document. Be interested. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, seeing no other hands, we're going to adjourn from open session and convene closed session, but did everyone receive the link from Mr. Huber?
Yes.
Good.